All right, everybody, we're going to start with the skill 2 workshop. This is actually our last. And so Zena is going to be the one that is going to lead this session. So take it away.
Okay. Meat is sort of a suggested thing. Today was the last day of my classes and I brought cupcakes as a treat. So if any of you need a cupcake at this point in the day, feel free to have a slightly runny, dirty cupcake. My students told me they were really good. So like the purpose of our workshop today is to go over what Essential Skill 2 is and then talk about how to design assignments in order to assess them. So if you want, it's cool, Charlotte. Walk across the thing, it's okay. So you can use the QR code or the little URL to access the slide deck, which will be easier when we do the workshop part, because then you'll have access to the actual language of the essential skill. So our goals for today will be to gain a better understanding of Essential Skill 2, how to better understand how to apply Essential Skill 2 to your essential education course, and most importantly, to develop an assignment that you can assess Essential Skill 2 or a vision of an existing assignment to do so. So really, like, the point of this is just to be able to make something that you feel ready to utilize for the assessment of the essential employability skills. So I have the easiest one because this is one that everybody's already doing all the time. So I don't have to really I don't have to sell it because you all are already doing it. So we want to solve problems and create new ideas and solutions. So graduates will think critically by evaluating assumptions and assessing information to make informed conclusions. They will also think creatively by defining ideas in original ways or developing new ways of addressing issues. This is all stuff that I think in any class, especially in essential education, gen ed kind of class, this is stuff that we're hitting pretty hard in those classes. And then the indicators of mastery I find helpful in terms of like language that we want to think about in terms of assessment. So identifies aspects of a problem clearly by locating and using relevant sources of information, like looking stuff up and thinking about where it comes from. Seeks out and considers different perspectives on a problem, and then articulates patterns, relationships, context, and other factors that are relevant to the problem. So essentially, like, these are the things that make you a really wonderful human mind and not an algorithm. These are the ways that employees or employers are going to want to employ you because you can do things that the algorithm can't. So I think that this one is pretty self-evident. So in terms of assignments, I guess, and in terms of like kind of coming up with, I'll go over the assignments first, I guess. So the one that I brought as an example that you can click on if you want to, for English 102, you can. You don't have to. It's not like I can explain it. I don't, because yeah. So in English 102, historically, what we used to do is have all of our English 102 students in English write. This is the research half of first year composition. So their job was to write an 8 to 10 page research paper on some kind of topic of their choosing. And in discussions in the English department, we came to the conclusion that that was not necessarily that transferable of skill. Because, as I say to my students all the time, nobody in the working world is going to be like, I want 8 to 10 pages on this and MLA on my desk by Friday. Like, that's not how the working world works. So what we decided to do was to open the project up. So all students start with a research question and then they complete different genre projects. And I just brought an example of one where the student, not only is deciding, like, they decide their research question, like, this is the question that I want to answer in the course of the semester with the research that I'm doing, and then I'm sharing my research discoveries with a specific audience that I'm choosing, so I'm deciding who it is I'm trying to reach. And then I'm deciding what genre would work best to reach that audience. So not only are they like coming up with a question, but they are critically thinking about who am I trying to reach and what is the best way to reach them. And we figured in English, this was a really good transferable skill. Like this is something that that most students will probably encounter having to do in the workplace. And I can talk about like assessing that or tweaking the language for assessment later. Who is like the in-class ethics debate assignment? You want, okay, yeah.
I'm Trisha Folks Kelly. I teach over in the School of Communication. I do this in a 200 level class, Introduction to Media Writing course, where ethics is not the primary focus of the course, but it's a foundation in the reporting and writing that they're going to be doing. And at the start of the semester, I give them a case study to read that's relevant to a journalistic or media profession. And I ask them starting out, do you know where you stand on this topic? Usually it has to do with, would you publish this person's name or not? Is usually the kind of the gist of the case study. And some people know where they stand, and I tell them I don't care where you stand right now, but then split them into groups of, this group has to argue using the industry ethics code to publish the name. This group has to argue why you shouldn't publish the name. And depending upon how big the class is, sometimes I have a third kind of wild card group, like, is there an alternative approach? Is there some happy medium, Aristotle would love to see. And this is, I was telling Krista earlier, this is something I just do and we do as an activity in class, but we added some prompts for like a reflection to that assignment link out for you to ask your students so they can apply it to their particular industry, how it's going to prepare them for the real world. And it has some reflective writing to talk about where they stood initially and then after doing the activity. Do they think differently? What did they learn from it? Kind of those types of prompts. And it can be used, I think, across many different classes, as long as the class has an industry that you're studying where there's some relevant ethics code.
Does anybody else have an assignment? No, okay.
I've been working in my ethics classes
Sure.
on formalizing things that I do in class where I have like kind of like for different theories, I'll have a list of scenarios and we'll kind of work through them both to understand how one would apply these highfalutin moral theories to real world situations, both like small potatoes things like should you lie to your girlfriend about how bad her haircut is, to like trolley problems and like sex situations. But also using them to get them to think critically, like, does this actually seem like it's giving the right answer to this dilemma? And can I articulate why or why not? So that gets into both kind of like showing there's comprehension in that, but then there's application. Figure out how to set up questions, just so that it's like this question assesses, part two, and this one assesses. But I'm doing a lot of this.
Yeah, no, and I mean, for me, when I think about the assessment piece of it, like I have a meta text at the end of each of their genre projects where it's like, tell me why you picked the audience that you did. Tell me why you picked the genre that you did for that audience. Like explain this to me and then reflect on sort of what you figured out and doing it. And I think that that's the sort of assessment piece that, at least in terms of my teaching practice with this, what I'm trying to think about is, and this is sort of a long way to get to the answer. But like I graduated from college with a degree in English and pretty much thought that that was like my ticket to like smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and like sit around and talk with smart people about stuff. Like I didn't really know what I could do as an actual job upon graduating, because many of my instructors were very focused on teaching me about like literary methods and things like that, and I didn't learn the language to communicate to an employer, like, this is how the work that I did as an English major translates into something that you can pay me for. Like, and I think that in terms of the assessment piece is a thing to sort of consider in writing up the assessment-y type part of the assignment would be, you know, how can I teach my student with this assessment piece? How can I teach my student the language that they need to know so they can translate? I read really difficult stuff into like, I can go through lots of documents quickly and pull out examples that I think are appropriate, and I think that that kind of language is important, especially in the gen ed classes that I'm teaching, and in terms of like getting this to apply in terms of larger assessment. Does that make sense? Okay. So now we get to start working on developing assignments and thinking about how you would translate and consider essential skill 2, critical and creative thinking, into your own discipline. And my guess is all of you know pretty well how that works. But I think in terms of the workshop, the whole idea of like student-centered language and thinking about how that's going to how you're shepherding them through all of the things in your class and then helping them learn how that can translate to actual meaningful work outside of the university. So all right, so this is assignment review next part 1. What we're going to do is fill out the little worksheet. So translate skill 2 for your discipline. How could students demonstrate skill 2 and identify one adjustment you can make to the assignment? So we'll work on this for 3 to 5 minutes. And then we'll do some sharing, and then we'll share out to the larger group. So I'll go ahead and get my phone and set a timer for 5 minutes.
Sorry.
Well, that's your phone.
Okay, sorry.
Mechanism versus hours. That's what we did. This analytic stories, gang flow, traps, Confucius, sending them gifts. Confucius is supported using novels.
Yeah.
So nice. You were just right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I would like to make this. Yes. Books. Because all you have to do is add. And it's a right justification why you need to do and why you just. And I actually saw one online that I was just it has them like put in a prompt for AI to solve, and then they have to go back and say, all right, what if AI did this? Like, what would they change? And they have to like justify students.
Yeah. What I do, and that works about how you can make your class.
Yeah.
Unless she's
That's the
APA side.
The trouble is the analysis.
Well, I just gave the students basically, I'm trying to. Yeah, the church out was all concept. That very basically, so we part of this about to be the teams, when they were doing it in the head. Because a lot of them were. Information, so they take.
Right, that's like that, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In general, to think not as a thing that replace friends to the money.
You know, and I mean,
No,
no,
kind of thing like that. And so things, APA style, is good.
I do think about like,
There's a good, also some people keep it good fall. I was. But they sort of.
Yeah.
The subsets one of the.
so if you have them do a small audit and then go ahead and write it and say, all right, what did it miss? What?
So,
right there, was this correct? And that is the way approach. Usually there are others in it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Resources are. They're not, but that's the science, like, it's the beta, so we're gonna find extra source for this, and it's almost like we have really got a conversation in your language.
Give feedback.
Yeah, you know.
Thinking, what's the best way to, give them.
Yeah.
Forward to your Friday, don't give to individual feedback.
Yes.
Once you get that done, select maybe a few that will work.
So I think I'm supposed to start using that request, but I can't figure out how to do it.
In terms of, there are workshops that are happening in terms of, are you in the right place? I get.
Evaluation.
Okay, because there are like, all of these different skills, we have different experiences that. And my guess is this house is one that is. So if you went to another one yesterday, to how we look at communication skills. Okay, so this one here focuses specifically on critical. And not so much, but like.
Right.
And make. What I was. And I think that like in departments, like when it comes to their assessments, and how this is kind of.
Yeah.
Like how they assess it. What I would do is think about this, yes, that you're doing a for your student. That requires them to be
Right.
you know. And then think about it, and get them to talk about.
They do.
You don't even have to blend it with, yeah.
So,
Oh, wow.
The closest thing we have to it right now is the, so I can go back to the
Yes.
slide, to the. Like, mid-life level.
so just go ahead.
Yeah. And that's
Oh, I know.
yes, the current still, and like the rubric.
You're just talking to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Fine, like framing it, yeah. So yes, you're sort of like going at this, like, as a thought experiment. Oh, just, yes.
So you have to like still, I'm a little surprised.
Oh,
Let's get it started.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Yes, yes.
Sounds like. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So what I would say is think about for your discipline, for your department, for your classes, for students who are lecturing or like pursuing things. Right.
Right.
Having them think about how they can talk about the things that they're doing in the work that they're doing for your class, which is a really long roundabout.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it sounds like we've moved on to the second step of sharing with people, which is wonderful. No, that's really great. So, I mean, I guess the question is, in terms of like each of us individually in our little groups, what were some things that what were adjustments that you thought of that you could do to an assignment that you already have?
the philosophers over here trying to figure out how to split the analysis part into different parts, one of which is more what we're doing today, and the other one of which is skill 10.
Mhm.
Those overlap a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
We do. And so that's good. And, you know, the problem is that comprehension, which is one of the other accreditation things, is sort of implied throughout this.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're thinking about how to make it.
Yeah.
Now, how about how we might refine? We have like a generic frame that functions across all of our 3B classes, you know, so the ethics and the philosophy, you know, intro to ethics and the philosopher, slightly different, you know, but we all, you know, like written assignment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know that there's like one specific way to do it, but I think just. I mean, what Star had said initially was this is like more intentional at this point, right? Like, how am I thinking about teaching my class in such a way that I'm getting my students to talk about the ways that they're thinking creatively and critically, or demonstrating creative and critical thinking skills and how that felt for them. But yes, does anybody else want to share larger?
Well, one thing we talked about at our table is, we'll throw out the nerdy AI word, but you can have students, you give them a prompt, put it in AI, and then have them critique what AI outputted and ask, what did it miss? What needs to be corrected? And then write a justification for it.
What your human brain.
Yeah.
Pick up
But
on.
what did your human brain find that the
That the algorithm
algorithm
did not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we were not. Conversing among us. As a retired teacher from the faculty, it's like, I'm done with this, you can go ahead. Sorry.
So now I think, seeing as though everybody was so good at sharing before, it might be fun for us to 4 or 5 minutes work on, and I think that this is the thing in my thinking about this that has made the most sense to me. Is like thinking about the kinds of language, the kinds of intentional language that we want to use in terms of talking about how we're going to talk about critical thinking in our disciplines and how we're going to talk about how we think in our disciplines. Because I think that that's the difficult piece for students to touch on. And I know in like looking at my own classes and thinking about assessment, especially today being the last day of class, thinking about, can my students actually, articulate what it was that I had them, the work that I had them doing in a way that like they can see as having implications beyond our classroom. And then yes, developing a student-facing rubric for the assignment. So how can we put it into instead of departmental or university language, how can we put it into student familiar language that they can understand? And this is all coming from somebody who has oatmeal brain right now from teaching and can't articulate it. But yes, let's go ahead and work on that for about 5 minutes and then share out again. You guys know. Okay, you do good. Thank
So much of that, so I was.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just getting nuts, yeah. I feel like CMS, there's a lot of different ways I can go to. I can have it made a presentation later either way. You know what I mean? That's the first thing. So I can give it like a scenario, a lot of stuff. That, I want to make on relationship. Yeah. For us, the core that subscribes to our things, so that's great. Then she like that's the high communication. But I feel like everybody will get it. There's a bunch of shit back there, I think. You know, that's why I'm like a child, like working together. I just want to like just think about yeah, and then I'm the will be visiting place. Right, like what do I know? How do I keep doing it? Yeah. And because you know, I'm well, this is the advice, so I kind of you know what I mean? Right. So it's completely out there, and there's gonna be some good things. So it's like, how do you extrapolate the stuff and then the right?
So then all.
That's the thing we want to have. Aspect.
What are these? Back into place, that's just sort of special action, all, we volunteer, like all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it's. Like trying to get something on it, like you share it with somebody, yeah. And then charity. So all around.
Yeah.
So this is just previous, so there you go. Like, we actually have a different assignment. Yeah. And then it won't be right. Yeah, we also figured out how to do that. We originally had that other sharing. Yeah. She brings that. So my every technology course will do this too. And then process just like this. So they just, the promoting instructor.
Yeah, well,
That's for a project. It's like those projects. So when so after in that, she was like, please make sure choices about solutions. Just really good. Just relax. He said it in a coffee shop in San Francisco in the 1970s, right? Ever regular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yes. I told him I was going to. And
I just want to go to
And not big on law and go, okay, you know, with all this, you know, I'm gonna do this assignment one, right, because they're building their reading sources here, and I have to do that. And then you need right after.
It's not very.
Sorry, it says what I'm previous.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Yeah. So that's. Excellent day.
Yeah.
I'm everything got.
Yeah.
But right now.
Yes.
Good conversation, yeah. That's one thing that's it.
Sorry.
That's good brainstorm.
True. Yeah.
All right. No, thank you. Sorry. No, chill. Thanks.
So did anybody come up with anything that you were pleased with in terms of a revised assignment prompt or a student facing rubric for the assessment assignment?
Charlie hasn't really.
Well, this year.
Correct, but we have the, do you?
No, we don't have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said you didn't.
No.
Overachiever. But no, like I think that, so this is for a 200 level literature classes. The assessment assignment would be, please write a summary of one course reading we've explored so far, and in doing so, identify key elements of the reading that contribute to its overall meaning. These could include literary features such as theme, characterization, or symbolism for a creative work, central claims and evidence for a nonfiction. So pretty much it's just like, you did all this stuff, now I want you to kind of summarize as it asks, you know, what are the things that we talked about and how did you kind of put the pieces together over the course of our class? And Charlotte had brought up that many of the faculty who are teaching this 200 level English class are worried that this would be an assignment that students could very easily be like, hey, algorithm, do this for me. But I think that the thought to have them actually do it in class and write it out during class time and turn it in then makes that a lot more difficult and allows students to, because I know when I do reflection assignments and attempts to sort of like, tell me about how you're thinking about this, especially in the classes that I teach, students really kind of struggle to articulate it, because to them it's like, this is just obvious, it's just how my brain works, and I'm like, no, like really tell me how, because you're making connections in this way that like, you're making connections, that's not how I make connections, so can you kind of explain to me more how you see these things happening? So I feel like that if you're doing it in the course of the class, finishing it in class time and not like going like this and having it follow up a larger assignment where they did lots of creative and critical thinking work, that would be a good way to think about doing the assignment.
Yeah. Perfect. We were just. Puzzling over student facing rubric. Part of stuff, but.
It's confusing, like, can you speak to that, like, is the assessment happening, like, do the students see the rubric and then we're like, this is how we're going to be doing it, or?
Well, I mean, I'm always transparent with rubrics and I bring copies and we talk about it,
Sure.
what it looks like together. And sometimes they even have them evaluate something with the rubric
Sure.
in class as an exercise. But I do know that PKU has a critical thinking rubric
Yeah.
somewhere. So that is one thing that can be used. And I have it if anybody needs it, just email me. And then there is the AACU, the American Association of Colleges and Universities. They have a critical thinking rubric that's available for free. So you could potentially tweak those and make them work for your assignment, or just
There you go.
pull out elements that will work. You don't have to use the entire rubric, but just certain relevant parts.
We did the QEP a couple of years ago
That's
with
critical
critical
thinking.
thinking, so I'm sure most departments still have some.
Yeah, I
sort of,
still have it if anybody needs it.
rubric for assessing critical.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna be given a rubric for 2 and 10, like we are for the competencies?
No.
Okay.
No, and I understand why you asked that, because with the competencies, it's very straightforward, it's like here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll have to come, will there be one for 10 that we'll all use?
oh, for 10, I don't know.
Is that
Allison, that might be a question for you. With skill 10. Mm-hmm.
What about skill 10?
Will there be a common rubric that we're given for that?
There will be a rubric that will go out, and there will also be some rubric development sessions. So there'll be an opportunity at the element level to tweak some of the criteria
Okay.
with the competencies, things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, there will be.
Okay.
Does that apply with rubric for 2 as well? Will there be sessions between that? Or we're on?
There will be rubric sessions
Yeah.
across.
Okay.
campus, Yeah,
And those all happen like, it's roughly
early fall,
early fall.
because fall is the data collection.
Yes,
semester
right,
first.
yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah, early fall.
Thank you.
So it's really fast and a lot of like.
Oh, I'm looking. You know, my folks are thinking the idea, hey. They're creating to solve problems. We give them mathematical problems to solve.
Mhm.
You know, here's the data as a result of your laboratory experiments. Now. Does it, can you support the hypothesis or not? I mean, I guess I'm kind of struggling with, as we're sitting here revising the assignment or that, it's either right or wrong. I mean, are we off base in terms of how we're gonna approach that?
So one of the things that we want to do with the integration of the essential skills into these assignments is to make sure that, yes, absolutely, you're right. When they're using quantitative data to, answer a question, they're thinking critically in order to solve a problem, for sure. But do they know that? Can they articulate that? Do they know that they are using that skill? So one of the things that we want to see is explicit language, reinforcement of the fact that this is skill 2. You're going to learn skill 2 in this class, you're using skill 2 in this assignment. So some of the revision may be really, really easy, and it's just a matter of making it explicit.
So you want to explain the thought process about I added the numbers together and I did this and this?
To, for that kind of an assignment?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to, because, this did not go over well for folks, that I've got 7 biology classes going to gen ed. And they wanted to know, wait a minute, so, like just exactly, when it's quantitative,
Right.
what exactly are the guidelines and things I'm gonna get, a rubric, right or wrong? I mean, I'm still not quite sure how I'm gonna tell my folks how to do this.
So we have a lot of resources available. Some of them are the TILT resources, the Transparency in Teaching and Learning resources.
Yeah, I took that in the
Yeah.
meeting I went to, and that caused anaplexis.
Okay.
Yeah, they just sucked up their breath and went, what? So.
Okay. So we understand that maybe if it's on an exam, we don't need like purpose and task outlined in quite the same way. And like the skill language at the top of an exam paper. But if you can prepare them, like if you're gonna ask them a question at the end of a lab, can you reinforce at the beginning of the lab that this is about skill 2? That they're going to be learning skill 2 and reinforcing it by what they're doing. Can you fit it in somewhere within instruction, within assignment instructions? Is there a study guide if it's an exam, that kind of thing? So some place to reinforce the skill language explicitly. And again, you're right, like we don't want you to change what you're doing if what you're doing is already meeting the skill. We're just trying to make it transparent for students because students will, I think this goes back to what Maggie was saying, being able to articulate the transferable skill that they've taken away from taking your class.
And I think Maggie did say it really well whenever she was talking about taking all those English courses, and then whenever you graduate, how were you able to articulate what you did? So from taking your biology class, if they're in a job interview, can they say that I can think critically to solve problems because I've been able to do blah, blah, blah? And just being able to articulate that. That's the biggest thing that we want, is for students to know that by doing this assignment or doing this problem, that they are learning to think critically, because they don't make that connection.
Yeah, I would say the transparency has, the main point here is for the students, for them to be able to articulate. I have this skill. I took this class, it was a gen ed class, maybe it wasn't in a discipline that I'm majoring in, but I took a skill away from it that now I can talk about. And I have confidence in myself to think critically to solve problems. The other side of it is like making it transparent for when it comes to assessment. So that your faculty, when they're assessing for the STAR reports, know that, okay, yeah, this is an assignment. This assignment is about essential skill 2. This piece of the assignment is about getting the students to think critically to solve problems. So just keeping that relationship between the skill and the assignment very, very clear throughout the course process, throughout data collection, throughout assessment.
I mean, I think it is. How do I put it? Like, I think it's really difficult to sort of figure out how to get students to talk about how they're thinking and get them to articulate what exactly it is that they're processing and thinking through when they're doing something like something that is that, like, there's a right or wrong answer, but like, how did you get to that point? How did you deal with the like, if we're talking about critical and creative thinking, this might not be, like, you may not be a biology major, this may not be something that you want to continue doing, but how were you able to read what it was that you were supposed to do? How are you able to sort of think your way through the process? Even if you didn't come up with the right answer, can you articulate how that process worked? And I mean, I know that that's a really weird place to sort of exist and write about in terms of coming up with a assignment that would follow up something like a project like you're talking about. How do I get my students to talk about the actual thinking work that they were doing behind it? And how do I get them to understand that that thinking work is actually something that they can use upon graduation to talk about themselves as creative and critical thinkers? I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Are they choosing amongst different formulas when they articulate the process through which they chose those different formulas?
But yeah, I mean, I think there are resources that you can use here. I think, like I said, most departments have still probably the old critical thinking rubrics that we used with the, I don't even know.
QEP. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I know.
It's 2 QEPs ago. Yeah.
So it's still, like, I think it's still something that we sort of have in institutional memory, like there was something that we were doing about it. So,
Yeah. And I always think too, if students can teach somebody else, if they can explain the content in their own words to somebody else, it means they know it. Right, and so asking them to think about how they would approach explaining it
to someone else.
to someone else who doesn't have that knowledge gets them to think critically. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
One last thing that I'll say is that we are in essential education, we're at the milestone level. So this is about them doing the skill successfully. So if they're doing the skill, then we're good. We're not at the level where we need them to be innovating with the skill, taking the skill from one context and applying it to a new, completely new, different context. It's just, are they doing it? Can they do it? Yeah.
You're using the same question.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't, if you have, like, does anybody have questions or frustrations? Other things they wanna talk about?
We also have, field liaisons in different areas who may be able to tailor their responses, more to the kind of content. For example, in a lab science. And those people, we can absolutely put you in touch with. Those might be the right people to help think through, like, how is this gonna look exactly?
Well, I know this is a difficult time of the semester and everybody's really busy, but,
Would Mark Goodman be someone you could contact for anything related to mathematics or those kind of things if we're trying to come up with something?
For mathematics, we've got Vicky Madisette, and we have Alex Wright has become kind of our de facto mathematics people.
And Jamie Marie.
Yes, and Jamie Murray, yes, thank you.
Do we have anybody in skill two from STEM areas? Well, we could work on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah.
I think we need that.
yeah,
We could work.
Yeah.
Do we have
Not mention those.
sciences liaison though? We just like.
it's the college, yeah. Rachel Bishop Ross.
Oh, yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. But she's not.
Yeah,
I bet she could still help.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do we do this?
Yeah.
Understand it. Yeah, not, we're not open stats of our main thought.
Yeah, they have. Very much.
And they might be able to help.
Charles, we'll look at some other people that are over in STEM that focus on, that can help focus on skill two, can help get you in contact with them to think about.
Appreciate that.
I think we're good. Yeah,
Yeah.
are we good to go?
Yeah, if you need anything on our grad profile website, go to that resources at the end, there's a Q&A document on our website, it has everything we've done this spring semester. It's got all of our recordings, this is our last one. So if you all need anything that we've done so far this semester, along with recordings or materials, we'll be able to find that there. Thank you, guys.
Yes, look at one thing, this is okay. So. I say that.
Yeah.
First.